Good evening. Tonight, New Genesis Wrestling is proud to bring a very special episode of High Voltage. Tonight, we're stepping out of the ring and into the battle that too many face daily: mental illness. Please join us as we team up with the National Alliance on Mental Illness to shine a light on the struggle that too many face alone. Mental illness does not wear a mask. It does not cut promos, but it does hit hard and affects too many, myself included. Join us tonight as we talk stigma, support, and survival. Because real strength does not come from in the ring. It comes from in the heart. Thank you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to NGW High Voltage. I am Alexander McNeil, and with me is a returning Scott Cross. Scott, it's wonderful to see you back up, sir.
Yes, a little bit down weather last week, appreciate Guido stepping in. Like Guido said, the show must go on, and, you guys did a great job, but I am back. I am a lot better. Thank you for everybody that reached out to me, but we are back at it.
And tonight is a very special episode to me and to you as well, because tonight we are teaming up with the National Alliance on Mental Illness to have a very serious and frank discussion about mental health. It's something that affects me, affects many people I know. It's something that when you struggle with it, makes you feel alone and not in control. And tonight we're very happy to be joined by Kaleigh Peery, who is going to representative from National Alliance on Mental Illness, who's going to be talking with us about avenues of support and also just showing and helping people know that you are not alone. We're going to be having some videos and some guests on tonight, and it's very important for everyone to know that usually you see us, in a character. I'm Alexander McNeil. Everybody knows me as the camera guy, and everybody knows Scott Cross as NGW head official. Tonight, we're ourselves. This is a very important topic. And anybody out there, feel free to comment, share your stories. And we have Dardar already in the chat with hashtag You Are Not Alone. But what do you say we go ahead and bring Kaleigh on, Scott?
Let's bring her on.
Hi, guys.
Welcome, Kaleigh.
Thanks for excuse me. Thank you for having us. It's really great to be here. So thank you again for reaching out to us.
I can't thank you enough for joining us. Like I said, it's something that is very personal to me.
Yeah, and it's I think that's not just you. I think it's really a subject, of everybody. It's like we talked about before. Mental illness is everyone is affected by it in one way, shape, or form, and not enough people talk about it. Not enough people reach out because they think they are alone. So that's what the National Alliance on Mental Illness does, is that we really our main goal is to spread awareness so we can help people understand they aren't alone in this. That there are people going through this, and whatever we can do to support that, we do. So.
And that's a true and noble mission. And I reached out a little bit over a month ago, I think, to you guys asking if you'd be willing to be a part of it, and you reached out almost right away.
Yeah. Well, I saw wrestling, and like I said, I was like, my family, I grew up with wrestling, and I'm like, this is perfect. And like I said, the connection is to a community that could probably reach the people that maybe we wouldn't be able to reach or never thought to reach out to. I mean, we try to expand throughout the 10 counties we serve, but, there's just some elements, whether we don't think about it or that we maybe can't reach. You are in a, unique position where with your platform and your wrestling to kind of shed the light on some mental illness for some people who in other ways may have not wanted to even reach out, whether it's because they're a man and there's that stigma attached to that, or sometimes who is, or people who just don't realize that they can't, that they don't have to bury it. I mean, there's so many elements, and this platform is such a great way for you guys to support that mission as well. So I'm hoping that we can even reach, like I said, a broader audience and help. If we help one person, it's worth it.
Yes, exactly. Alex, you brought this up several times that, in the world of wrestling, we see these wrestlers as superstars and above everybody else. And they don't have problems. They don't go through stuff. And people in the audience think that, they're not going to go through the same thing. Then they realize that they're going through the same struggles that they may be going through. So it's nice on a level to see them as a human being, not just a superstar, and to see that they are not alone going through this struggle.
I know there's something whenever I had talked with Alexander right after that, because I'm actually going to be in our newsletter coming up called The Label for Individuals Inspiring Impact. And I interviewed him and we got to talking about pretty much everything. And something he pointed out that when I asked him about wrestlers and the connections that, did they talk about it? And what I thought was really great was that one that stuck out was these wrestlers look out for each other. They may be enemies in the ring, but they look out for each other in and out of the ring. And that even if they're going through something, they're there for each other. And that's really powerful for everyone to hear that, because beyond that character, they're, struggling but they have that community. And I think that knowing that helps people reach out too.
And the most important thing in and out of the ring is keeping each other safe and healthy.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And that extends beyond just making sure that somebody lands right or you're there to catch them, as part of a big move. It's just making sure that we're all right emotionally.
And that's, I think, for wrestling is viewed as such a tough man sport. So when you said that to me, I thought that was just really like I said, just a powerful thing, because men, and not just men, wrestlers, people in sports, people who are stoic, are a lot of times, sometimes the people who are suffering the most. And knowing that there's people who, like, the wrestlers are, what am I trying to say? Collaborating together, are working together as like a family, looking out for each other, is just something that is just a really great message to send, I think, as far as mental health goes. And then there's the athleticism to it, because I know athletics and wrestling or any sport, exercising to any degree is really good for your mind as well. It's a good coping skill. So it's kind of a dual thing, and when it comes to mental health.
And we've got a couple comments. We have Zaximus Burton saying that this is amazing. Have the infamous Dardar as someone who has been having mental health stuff. This means a lot to me, and everyone who have been having really bad mental health, and to tell them that we are not alone in this stuff.
Absolutely. And actually, I'll leave my email in the comments for anybody who would like to reach out, or if I can I do that?
Yep.
And they can reach out to me, and I do the newsletter called Beyond the Label. It's kind of a thicker magazine style. So if you wanted to, I'm going away somewhere. If you wanted to be a part of that, volunteer with us. If you want to go to support groups, there's so many things that we could offer to just kind of put you, help. So I will put that in. Just feel free to email me, and I'll set you up for whatever we can do to help.
Yep, and we're putting the website for the National Alliance on Mental Illness Southwest Illinois in the comments there as well.
Well, I'm trying to put it in the comments. I don't know. I'm pushing buttons. That's all I know I'm doing. Okay, well, I'll try this. It says connect to YouTube. Okay, here I go. Anyway, but yeah, and that's what it's like, just reaching as many, we have support groups. We cover 10 counties. We have something called the Connections Group, which is for, people with lived experiences, and it's also facilitated by somebody who has experiences or lived experience. So you're not just sitting up there with somebody who has a degree who you don't feel like you can relate to. You're in a group of people who have experienced the same or similar things as you have. We also have some that are virtual too. So if you're kind of nervous about going to groups, we have like that virtual option, so you can kind of sit back and kind of feel it out. But on the other end, we also have family support groups, because people who are struggling with a loved one that has mental health condition, it sometimes can be taxing. They can feel guilt, they can feel blame, they can feel all these kind of emotions that they don't know where to place. And I can't tell you how many people I have redirected to one of our family support groups, because when I tell them, when they call for resources, and I tell them, you're not alone, I have a perfect, place for you to be, because there are other families that are going through this exact same thing. And we do presentations as well. We'll go to schools, workplaces, what else? Law offices, police officer training. I mean, we do these presentations to educate not just everybody, but also people who work with the mentally unwell. How do you talk? How you talk matters. Knowing the symptoms, doing certain things can trigger people, and knowing from a professional point of view how to handle that, because everybody deserves to be treated with respect. And sometimes I think that's kind of gets lost in translation in some of those fields.
Yeah, we have Zach Samiz saying, I became a self-love coach just because of my fights with mental health.
Awesome.
And, something that a lesson that I've learned in regards to mental health that I try to hold deeply in is that not necessarily all of it, but mental health, a lot of it can be sourced from a trauma.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say a lot of it. I mean, there is genetic disorders, predisposed disorders, absolutely. And I think a lot of that can be exacerbated by trauma, or sometimes it's your first onset, like psychosis could be triggered by something extreme happening in your life. PTSD, there's so many elements to all these disorders. And I do think the majority of them are stemmed from some sort of trauma. It doesn't mean all of them are, but I mean, we all have that genetic makeup. I have, PTSD. I have complex PTSD and ADHD. I know that ADHD runs in my family, so I have that predisposed to it. It doesn't, but my PTSD is from trauma, and you kind of add those together. That's where the complexity comes in. And so understanding that the trauma is very real, but it's not always your fault. Like, I think sometimes when we struggle with mental health, we don't reach out because we feel guilt. Again, we feel shame. We feel like our feelings are invalid, or we feel like it's not that big of a deal. We normalize the pain. We bury it down until we have that psychotic episode, or we have that moment where we're self-harming, or we have that moment where we find ourselves spiraling in addiction. We're just trying to find something to make us feel better. And that's usually stemming from that trauma, trying to fill that void. So that's a really good point to bring up.
In my personal experience, the thing I've learned is trauma is trauma. Your body and your mind do not understand that there are levels of trauma. Mm-hmm. It's all the same. So one thing that I dealt with was the feeling of you're not allowed to feel this way.
Yeah.
Because you rationalize it away, because you think what I'm going through isn't as bad as what other people have gone through.
Exactly.
So why do I get to feel this way? Why I shouldn't need help, because there are other people who have gone through far worse, and they're the ones who need help, not me. They are. But your body and your brain don't understand levels of trauma. Trauma is trauma.
And was something I learned for myself personally, and when I used to work at like the crisis center and ran a lot of support groups. They are not support groups, they're educational groups really. And what I learned was that just because you don't have the same path as somebody else, that doesn't invalidate your pain. And so, so different paths, same pain. And it's kind of when I realized that, when that clicked inside my head, it really kind of helped me start healing myself. Because I still, even though I was going through my own mental health, journey, I wasn't at a point where I still felt like I still wanted to help people, because I felt like I could help, and I still wasn't doing the work myself, if that makes sense. Because I didn't think my pain was invalid. And so understanding that we all go through different paths, that doesn't make somebody else's trauma or symptoms any less important or extreme or as somebody else's.
And also, sometimes it doesn't help when people, say things of, it happened long ago.
Oh,
you should get over it.
Right. Or it doesn't help when people reach out and they want to talk about it and they kind of roll you off. Like, I roll. Because people don't understand about some of these symptoms. I know for PTSD, something that, or people who are going through a traumatic experience, they may tend to repeat themselves as far as that trauma. And sometimes that's because it's replaying in their head. They don't mean to. It's not intentional. It's not for attention. Where some people may look at that as an attention get, like, they want attention, and it's not. It's really what they're doing what we're doing when we do that is we're still trying to process it. And every time you let somebody just talk about it, you're helping them heal. And I think that's something a message I'd like to send out today, is that just sometimes just listening and just being there is the most important thing you can do. Writing off somebody, being annoyed, sometimes it is hard, but taking that 5 minutes to just listen and let them play it out does more for their mental health than you could ever imagine. You could just save their life, for all you know, honestly.
Yeah. I want to get to a couple comments here. We got Dardar. There are a lot of people that have been assuming that other people are fine, but knowing they are not. Never assume what anyone is going through. So never assume what people are going through.
Yep, absolutely.
And that brings me to something, that I said to you when we talked before. People don't fake depression. They fake being okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And sometimes it's crazy, because I think when it came from my personal journey is that and then that faking it for so long, that's a big part of my story, is just biting the bullet and going through the motions and thinking if I did XYZ, if I did this, if I did that, I would be okay. Because the perception of how I was feeling would be I was okay. But really inside, I was just having this internal breakdown. I had an ulcer. I would clench my teeth. I would do all these things. And nobody really knew, because I had hid it. And to the point, like that breaking point comes. And sometimes you really wish that somebody would have been like, hey, that was really hard. Like validate, like that what you went through was not normal, and just being that, being there. And that was literally because of the lack of awareness in our society. I mean, it's much better now than it was when I was 15. But, we didn't talk about mental illness. You just didn't. That's just how it was. And that's actually why I do what I do, because I love what we do. I'm passionate about what we do, but it's something that I just feel like the more education out there, the better we're able to build a better tomorrow.
We us Dardar say, me personally have been struggling with mental health, and that everyone assumes that it's funny and I'm fine. So everyone should feel free to express themselves and not have to hide it.
Yep.
Mayor Savage, a weight gets lifted off when you finally get the diagnosis. You feel hurt. It's okay to talk about it.
Yeah, and you're allowed to feel. That's what I always tell everybody. You're allowed to feel however you want to feel. The only thing that's not okay is to hurt other people. And that's one. But I think a lot of times when we end up using our words to hurt people is after so long of not being heard or not speaking up, is when we start to lash out. Your feelings are always valid, even if it doesn't feel, it's whatever your feeling's real. And if you don't talk about it, it's going to come out in other ways. and usually they're negative ways. So,
And Zach's is learning to listen to understand versus listening to respond. This changed me, everything to me.
exactly.
And we have Ariel saying the scariest thing sometimes could be just getting help, because
Oh,
the state you're in is familiar. Help and support and change are terrifying.
Oh God, yeah. I think that was the scariest thing I ever did was in 2017 was I voluntarily checked myself in, and said, I'm not well. I don't know who I am anymore. I had spiraled out of control. My anxiety was so bad that I couldn't talk. I was in a state of PTSD paralysis. I kind of found out where I couldn't make words. It was in my head, but I couldn't get them out. And it was terrifying. I mean, to do that, but it was, once you get through it, you realize, that's what, and then it was actually at that moment is when I found NAMI. So it was 9 years ago. So it changed. It's usually the hardest things that are the best things, at the end. No.
We have daughter. Everyone is loved, respected, and heard. Forget the other people who think it's funny. Only go to the people you trust with your emotions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's hard. That's hard to do too, because sometimes you think that people are there for you and they're really not. And I've learned to realize that everybody's fighting their own battles and it's not personal. Sometimes people aren't the best of friends or who they thought you were, but it's nothing to do with you. It's their own. And learning how to not take on that negative energy of it. And remembering that your feelings are valid. Doesn't matter. And if you want to say what you want to say to whoever, almost, because who you are and what you feel matters to not just your closest friends, And I hate to be like, you know what I mean? You should be able to speak out and not be afraid of what other people are going to say or do in regards to that. But
And we have Mayor Savage saying, remember, it's okay to put you first.
yes.
And that's something that's really hard to do.
Yeah. I think a lot of people almost do that.
I have Dara say, I try to hide my emotions, but hiding your emotions just makes everything worse.
The hardest thing I had for me was opening up about, what I was going through to somebody, because you didn't know if they were going to take it the certain way. But then when you find somebody that's kind of going through the same thing you're going through, it's a lot better because you're not in alone. You got somebody to kind of bounce ideas off and, go through, hey, I'm going through this. Well, I'm kind of going through this. And it's the best thing to start, but it's always, you hesitate because you don't want to open up, because you don't want to unload your problems onto somebody else. But a lot of times they're going through problems too that you don't realize. And it's just, the main thing is just opening up, getting the conversation started, and then going from there.
Exactly.
That's what I learned in my ordeal.
The conversation, that is the most important thing. Bringing up the conversation about mental health is so important, about your own, about just in general. Is starting that conversation is what opens the door for you. It opens the door for others. People just knowing that somebody that you're struggling, they may know now, okay, well, I'm not alone. You too, and you would never have thought that, that person was experiencing that, because a lot of people are hiding behind a smile, and a lot of people are just having a psychotic break kind of thing, but, they're going through their everyday life and still kind of suffering. And I think that's something people forget about. We either have, the schizophrenia and these schizoaffective, those disorders. And then people sometimes, I think, often forget about the everyday depression. The long-term effects of grief, things like that. And there's no middle ground in it. And I think that starting having these candid conversations and these real conversations is how people realize, wait a second, that's what I'm experiencing, and not even realize it because they've been living that way for so long. So.
And in my personal experience, something that, when you do talk to some people, and people mean well, they really do, but sometimes people can accidentally say something that hurts you more than they realize.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, for example, when we lost our son, a message of support that people would try to offer is, well, you can try again.
Oh, my God.
And that, you know, they were trying to put, and I understand, they were trying to put a light at the end of the tunnel, a silver around the cloud. I blanked on the express. Open a window when the door closed. But it's one of those things of it hurt because like they're not wrong, but they don't understand what you're going through.
Exactly.
And when somebody says that, it's like, well, nobody is going to understand why I'm going through. I'm just not going to open up to anybody else.
And you know, as you know my story a little bit, I can 110% relate to that. As for everybody who doesn't know, I am an angel parent of, well, it's now 4. I had a stillbirth almost full term, like I was 7 months along. When I was 19, a miscarriage. In 2013, 2017, I had a healthy baby girl named Esmeralda Phoenix. Due to some series of misfortunate events with the medical system, we lost her at the Children's Hospital on May 4th, 2017. And then about 2 months ago, I had an ectopic pregnancy. But I know when I lost my daughter, it was the same thing. People don't want to, you know, I remember that was one of those points, though, where people would say, oh, now, you know, you can have a healthy baby. Or, you know, now you know, it's like, yeah, okay. Or, you know, though you're so strong. And yeah, I appreciate that kindness. But sometimes at that point, there's a lot of people around me that are also falling apart rightfully so. And I kind of remember feeling like I had to be the strong one, and I had to be the certain type of way. I kind of retreated back to that old prior self, you know, of I've got to stay strong. I can't talk about it. I can't do this. But then something clicked, and it was like I started just saying her name, and I started talking about her, and I put myself into my art and all this stuff. And but there was definitely plenty of times where I just wanted to be like, you know, there's no words for a reaction for that. You know, you can try again, or yeah. So that that resonated me a lot when you said that. But then I know people do that in general, though. It's like, or people say, "Have you taken your medicine?" Not to me, but that's one of those phrases. You should, you know, maybe I did, maybe I didn't, but you know, but that's when it comes to mental health, there are things that we should avoid saying because it's not kind.
The one that I hate is, "Oh, just suck it up."
Right.
Yes.
It's like, no, I can't just suck it up.
It's very real to me. And just because you don't see the impact it's having on me, you don't understand it, doesn't mean it's not real. And that's the thing about when we experience anything. I don't care if it's because I spilt my milk. Whatever leading up to me spilling that milk, it's beyond spilling that milk. So if I'm freaking out about that, it's probably about something much bigger. So you don't know. Let me cry over my spilled milk, kind of thing, like, and be there for me.
And we have another voice from the wrestling industry who'd like to join in here with us for a moment, and we have Zaximus Burton.
How you doing, guys? My lady.
I'm well.
How you? Savage sent me the link over because when I got into the industry in 2018, this is something that I hold very dear to my heart, is mental health and mental clarity and stuff for people. As I mentioned in the chat before I jumped in, I did become a self-love coach through 2022, and I'm slowly building my business of Good Brother Healing. It is based in wrestling. If most people know, there is a tag team called the Good Brothers, and how they act and how they treat each other and how they treat their fellow friends and brothers is kind of the reason why I honed on that name of Good Brother, and that's where I want to be. 2020 was a rough one for me, like everybody else. I was working in Sam's Club doing. I was a technology team lead, right? A floor team lead, basically a department manager. nobody was listening to nobody. And it just became so evident that like we forgot how to be passionate to one another. And I was starting to lose the passion with myself and seeing my light just diminish. Borderline personality disorder, schizomanic or I can't remember what the hell they call it anymore. Depression, anxiety riddled in my body. It's been that way since I was, oh God, earliest I can remember was like 10, 11.
Yeah.
I was trying to, finish it. Finally at 19, I attempted, and thank God wasn't successful. Here I am still standing today. But 2020, I really was feeling that way again. Thank gosh, I have an amazing woman that stood beside me, that stood next to me and listened to me and let me be that crying little child that I was, the little boy in me that wasn't getting the attention, that wasn't getting the love even then. Borderline personality disorder, most people don't understand it because they think it's in the between of like, God dang it, bipolarism, right? It is. We just feel all the emotions at once. Like I can go from happy to sad, back to happy in legitimately the split of 5 seconds. It is the most excruciating thing to deal with on a daily basis when you have that up and down roller coaster, and it happens at any moment. And like you guys said, with things people are saying, it can be just the minutest things, and you feel it in every inch of your body, inch of your bone. Luckily, here in Quincy, where I live, we have Blessing, and they have the Blessing Best program, basically like AA for mental health people.
Oh, awesome.
And so getting around them and getting into that, because in 2020, I quit work. I said, I'm done. I'm over it. I became an abusive father to my kids in some extent, and I started seeing it and realizing it and needed to change it. We have 4 beautiful children that I love dearly and I would do anything for, hence the reason why I took myself off the roller coaster, because I wanted to get fixed for them, and not really fixed. I wanted to heal myself. I wanted to absorb the light that I knew I was and the kindness that I had and I shared with people. And I wanted to start feeling it for myself again. All my life, from parents to teachers, etc., I've always been called selfish, and I never once saw myself as a selfish person. So for everybody else to see the selfishness in me, it hurt. It destroyed me. So now I talk about being positively selfish, and that we should be selfish to ourselves and take the time out for ourselves and stop worrying about everybody else, because there's a lot of us that don't realize we are people pleasers.
Self-love isn't selfish.
100% not.
Yeah, it takes a lot of people takes that. Well, but in order to love yourself, you have to have confidence in yourself. And that's something I think when we're struggling with our mental health symptoms, we kind of, a lot of us can go through that point where, for me personally, I second guess myself. I've gotten much better at it, but I'm always constantly kind of telling that's not good enough. You could do better. But at the end of the day, you've got to love yourself. And in order to do that, you got to have that confidence in yourself and be okay with not being great all the time. I'm going to have bad days. I'm going to have good days. I'm going to be mad for no reason some days. And that's who I am. And that's okay.
Amen. Yeah. I would have talked longer, but I'm a talker. I love to talk. I love to share. They call me the Gym City Mouth for a reason.
Well, we usually get linked up with NAMI. We do presentations for all kinds of places, and we always looking for. We have a program called Ending the Silence, where we go to like middle schools. Mm-hmm. And what we do is there's 2 people. It's like somebody kind of does like more of the facts about the facts to the students, and the other person is generally like a younger. We try to get them, like closer to their age, but they have to be over 18, but under 30. And we talk and we go from we share our stories. A lot of times I'm the kid, even though I'm old now. But we share about any of the sciences, and it's for people. We talk about the time where we wanted to end our lives, and we're telling this to middle school students, and it makes so they understand, like, when I was your age, this is what I felt the same way too, and showing that you can make it. And we also have something called In Your Own Voice, where we kind of share our story through like segmented stuff. And so, you see it linked up. If you like to talk, it's good.
One of the things when I started getting tattoos, I really focused on my arms And one of the reasons why I focused on my arms is behind my tattoos, there's actually scars, deep ones, that whole covering up the past and stuff. And I'm not, in some sense, some of them you can see through it still. And it's kind of cool because it's that reminder of like how far I've come and that how much like I was able to put this beautiful artwork. There's a massive scar right here down my arm where I not happy about it, but I did it. But to see it through the tattoo and see it with the fact that I've done all that healing, all that shadow work, all that looking myself in the mirror, and realizing that I am more valuable to me than anybody else. And when you can get to that mindset, and I know that's a hard one to get to because a lot of people want, your mother, your father, your girlfriend, your husband, whatever it may be, to value you the same way that you value yourself. But once you really start valuing yourself and truly valuing yourself, and when I mean valuing yourself, I mean really looking at you and starting to love, A, the body you're in, B, the mind that you have in the body, and the outlook that you have in the body. Once you can really start absorbing that piece of you and you can start really developing you, then that's where everybody else will start to fall into line and be like, oh my gosh, this guy's radiant or this lady's radiant now. It's a hard one. It's a battle it's taken. I'm 38 years old. I got diagnosed at 18 with borderline personality disorder finally. No books, no nothing. Nobody told me what to do. I lived with that until I joined the BEST program when I was 34. That's when I joined the BEST program and learned, really got to deep dive into the borderline personality. Because like you said, nobody talked about it. I was the generation that we got fed ADD medicine or this or that because we were too hyper, we're too blah, 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 whatever it may have been. And then you talked about but I'm hearing things, but I'm like seeing things, but my body doesn't feel okay. And everybody's like, oh, no, that's growing. You're growing, or you're this, or you're just stressed over that. No, there was something wrong and nobody was letting me emotionally.
Which is traumatic. That's traumatic on its own. Just despite all your symptoms that you're having, not feeling heard as a child is something that is an overlooked trauma for a lot of people. You're hearing, you're speaking out. It's hard for adults to do that, let alone when you're a kid and when you're growing mentally and you're reaching out and everybody's saying you're fine. Basically, you're going through stuff. It's a physiological thing. You'll be fine in a year when you hit puberty or whatever. That's traumatic for a kid to hear because eventually, guess what? You start reaching out. You start self-medicating, you start self-harming, you start going down these routes. And then all of a sudden, we start kind of going off of these labels people tell us we are, whatever that may be, so.
Yeah, that was my biggest fear is divulging myself into the darkness that everybody else was telling me that I was. And I know exactly where my trauma comes from, and I don't want to speak on it really because I don't want to disrespect him anymore in some sense. Because I do love him and it is family oriented, very close family oriented, if you can read behind the lines. But I no longer want to just blame him for it because there's a lot of the things I wasn't listening to him and potentially at the time as a youth. But I grew up without somebody masculine in the house all the time. And then when the masculine force was in the house, it was over masculine. So where I needed that comfort from that male figure of softness, I didn't get it. It wasn't divulged to me. You had to be tougher. You had to be stronger. Crying for, babies, crying for the B word, all that kind of stuff. I heard all of that. And like almost any man can say that. And that's a dang shame in my opinion. I have 2 boys of my own. I will never tell my boys to man up. It will not happen. At all. You won't hear me say it. I let them feel their emotions and then we talk through it and we work through it together as a unit and I allow that position to be there. My son had the balls, and I say it like that because I'm proud of him for doing it, because my oldest son, he's had to grow up with the unhealed version of Zach. Okay. Now he's getting to see the healed version of Zach, where we get to have those conversations and we get to, when he used to, before I realized what I was becoming, he didn't get treated the same way that he does now. He was getting that hard hand, that male figure, like, be a man kind of thing. And now that we go to therapy together, we go to counseling, we go all that stuff, and we're working on that. Him and I really have gotten to build that relationship where he can stop and be like, hey, Dad, you're being too much. I need you to dial it back so we can have the conversation. But he had the audacity to say I was lazy one day because I'm a stay-at-home dad. I get the luxury of that because my beautiful wife is amazing and busts her tail. But when he said that, I'm like, am I really, dude? Because this, and this gets done. And then he's like, oh, yeah, you're right. And this, and this. And he's like, all right. But him and I was able to have that conversation. If I would have said that to my parents, oh, she.
Well, how we talk is so important to each other, though. I think even as a parent and kid, or just as humans, learning how to communicate is such an essential part of mental health. I think that a lot of miscommunications, triggering things, we can trigger people without knowing, and vice versa. And we automatically take things personally, and vice versa. We don't realize we're hurting somebody. And learning how to communicate can, I think, really alleviate a lot of some of these symptoms that we're experiencing sometimes, because we get in our head, or they're talking about me, they're mad at me. And if you're suffering with, anxiety, just, that could make you just spaz out a little bit, like, oh my God, what am I doing? I'm messing everything up. And in reality, they were just asking you what you're going to have something done, but it was the way you asked. It was how you spoke, how you talked to that person, or, I learned, for me, I never spoke up. So I learned I was always the funny one, and I was always athletic, and I did all these things. And I always felt like if I just was a certain way, I would feel better. If I was just this way, I wouldn't get in trouble. Things would be okay. And I learned a long time ago that life is not rainbows and sunshine. Life is hard. And that's just how it is. But at the same time, I learned that I can choose how I react to things. I don't take everything personally anymore. I realize when I'm upset with a situation, I take the moment to, whether a moment being a week or 2 weeks or a month, because I'm not ready to react yet. I know I'm feeling a type of way, but let me sit with this for a minute. Let me see if it's a reaction because of my mental health disorder, or let me see if I'm valid, and giving myself that space. I'm honoring myself, but also the other person in the situation, because I could be completely wrong. And learning, and that's something I really love about what I do and what we do with NAMI is we're, again, starting that conversation of, you don't know what these symptoms are. That's a symptom, that person's not rude, or sometimes people are on medications that are kind of heavier and they kind of can make you drowsy. So you may think they're lazy, but really they're kind of exhausted because they're on these medications. Or maybe they're sleeping all the time because they're depressed. Or maybe they don't want to talk to you on the phone right now, not because they don't want to talk to you, but they don't want to talk to anybody, and understanding that it's not personal. And usually it's breakdown in communication and saying, okay, it's not me. Let me either reach out and use my words. Is the way I tell people, use your words, because I can't read your mind. And I think perception is everything. And when I learned that fact right there is the moment I changed my life, perception and using conscious language. I stopped telling myself, with PTSD, one of the main symptoms is chronic negative thinking. So you think what can go wrong will go wrong, but it's because it has gone wrong, and I've had some of the worst possible things happen to me. And it almost feels like when I talk about it, it's like not even my life. I'm telling a story, somebody else's story. And it's just, I don't know, I forgot what I was saying, but there's my ADD kicking in.
Nothing wrong with that.
Look, there it went. They'll come back.
Like I said in the chat too, the whole learning to listen to understand versus the listening to respond scenario, that became a big thing that I do. And self-talk. Mm-hmm. Self-talk is the main culprit of everything.
That's what I was saying.
Every one of us has had somebody in our life that talked derogatory or negative to us, behind us, or whatnot. And somehow, some way, potentially you pick that up as something that you do now to yourself. And that's how I was. That was one of my biggest components, is the self-talk and being self-destructive, but that's also comes with borderline personality disorder.
I think it's also a symptom, like I said. I think it's a general symptom of like almost everybody who's suffering with any, whether you're with a BPD, it may be more of a consistent thing. Same with like complex PTSD, that's one of the same components. But when you're in depression, your mindset's that way too. Or when you're in extreme anxiety, your mindset's in that, that mindset too. But I remember discovering conscious language, and it was words to remove from your language. So I used to always I lose everything all the time, and I would lose something, and then I would just immediately my mind would go to I'm stupid, kind of mentality. Like I can't believe start just talking shit to myself, basically. And I'm like, I wouldn't let somebody else talk to me that way, but I'm sitting here talking to myself that way. And I started learning that what I started doing slowly was I still had that thought, but I would listen in my head, and I wasn't hearing or seeing things, but I would talk it through, and I would say it, but then I would be like, no, you're not. No, you're not. You know what I mean? And started doing that to a point where, and then after a while, that turned into almost having the thought, but saying, you got this, or finish it. But I said I didn't end the thought there. I finished it out with a positive, and it took a while. I mean, almost like rewiring my brain to adjust to that. And I think honestly, doing that when I got my help was what saved me when my daughter passed away, because I had the strength and that mental strength. Had that had happened, me not have that, I don't know. I buried my daughter next to my son, and I was only 30. That's not normal. And I think what got me through is that mindset of, I'm still here. It has to be a reason. And the old me would have been like, I need to die. I'm not supposed to be a mom. This is kind of, that negative talk. So it's crucial. I think that actually is what saved my life, was knowing that conscious language, and there's a really awesome book out there if you guys want to look it up. It's called Conscious Language. Because I do my best to say, I don't try. I do. It's like, I want to quit smoking, but I'm not. I haven't, so I'm not going to say it, It's using that language, though.
Well, that brings me to one of my favorite sayings and one of my favorite quotes. And the first word that I worked my diligence to remove, and a lot of my friends will make fun of me for it. A lot of them will poke fun. The guys in our locker room in IEW will always hears me say it, and it's try. There is no word. Try doesn't exist. It's do or do not. There is no try, according to Yoda. And once I started to actually understand what that meant and the concept behind that, it really has taken the word try out of my vocabulary, because I don't try to do anything anymore. I'm either working on it or progressing towards fixing it, or I'm doing it or I'm not doing it. That's what it comes down to.
No, that's exactly right, though. Because I am statements is very powerful. That's a big thing. I am, I am struggling. I am, and that's okay. I am. And something else is that you are more than your illness, though. That's why I renamed our newsletter Beyond the Label, because we're all human beings at the end of the day. If we just stripped ourselves of these labels, we are still all just human beings healing. And we're all just going through the same life, trying to figure things out. None of us have all the answers. What's right for you may not be right for me, but that doesn't mean, that we all can't get along, and and that's actually what NAMI Suite is about. Or NAMI in general is just bringing that community together and letting people know they're not alone in this. There are people out there that understand. There are people. It's like I have described it as the lifeline I never knew I needed, kind of. Because I didn't realize how much I need. After I got out and got checked, I checked myself in, and I stayed voluntarily, for 18 days. Then I got out. I immediately started volunteering with NAMI, and the reason was there was a woman who was in the crisis unit, she was a peer support specialist, and I was so upset. I was in my room crying because they're like, "Well, you can't see a doctor for 2 weeks." Well, I'm thinking, this is back when you could smoke. I go, I can chain smoke at home. I don't need to be, why am I here? I'm upset because I finally reached out, and I did it. And why am I here? And she actively came in my room and just to do some paperwork, and she saw how upset I was, and I was like getting myself to leave. And she actually ended up advocating for me, taking me to the emergency room, saying she needs some medication right now just to get me from my anxiety, but she really stood up for me and she advocated for me when I didn't think that was like, people didn't do that kind of stuff, And then she told me about NAMI, and then I immediately just started volunteering with NAMI after that. And I got, and I was like, this is something like I didn't know existed. The only thing I had really heard of prior to that was like NA or AA. And I'm like, well, I'm not here for substance misuse, I have anxiety, basically. And I was like, okay, this is amazing. Like this, I went to a couple support groups, but I really just liked, even to this day, I have people I met that day that I started, volunteering, that I still keep in touch with, that I still, if there's things if I'm really struggling, I haven't talked to them in a couple of years, I can call. And that's, that kind of shows you that I guess that family, that, like I said, that lifeline where it was like, I never knew I needed it, but it's something, and being able to be a part of it still, I've been a speaker, a volunteer, presenter, I've been a board member, and now my current role as a business and communications manager and the newsletter creator, and amongst all the other hats I wear. It's a really cool thing, and they've really been there for me, and as an organization, as a program, and it's important, This mental health is important. It's very real, and I wish more people would speak out and have more of these conversations publicly.
Zach, I want to thank you for coming in, man. It's, that it means a lot to me to get other voices from inside the industry speaking out on this.
I mean, I appreciate that, Alex, 100%, man, because ever since I joined the wrestling industry, there is a brotherhood. There really is. Okay, it's there. But behind all that brotherhood, and this is just my opinion, so take it and leave it. If it hurts people's feelings in the locker rooms, I apologize. There's like this fake facade. Sometimes there's groups and pockets, for a fact your voice is being heard and listened to, and you're being recognized for the people that you are. I think that can go across the board with most to all of us. We could really start working and supporting each other and developing these connections and stuff, because all of us, it doesn't matter where you're from, what promotion you're from, and all that kind of stuff. All of us have battled some type or form of A, bullying, B, not feeling seen, or C, just truly, truly despising yourself for no reason, because maybe somebody else put it in there, maybe something else happened, or whatever caused that effect. And I would love to see the wrestling industry heal as a whole. We saw the destruction of what an icon passing away can do to the industry, and the turmoil and the polarizing of perspectives on that person. Why do we got to worry about when they leave do that? Why can't we fix things now? Why can't we develop together now and fix those kind of things to where we're not bashing each other? And if you have problems with people within the industry, that's fine. Do it. Have your problem, but don't voice it. Don't bring it to the forefront. Don't make your despise for one person destroy the whole locker room for no reason, when we all still can work together and still be there even to support that person too. I want to support anybody. I love people. I love the industry. I love what wrestling has given me. I tell Herb Simmons all the time, and I'll bring him up here. I know it's probably a taboo thing, but I talk to him all the time. But wrestling's my drug. It's my drug of choice. It's what's kept me out of being 6 feet under a long time ago, and that's not a lie. That wrestling is what took me away from everything else before I got my hydroxyzine, before I got my Diloxin, before my medicine cabinet was filled. The first drug of choice was professional wrestling. It would allow me to escape and be free of my problems with myself, my problems with my family, all that kind of stuff. So to see an industry at times toxic as it is, but still yet so beautiful in this retrospective, this greatness, because we're all doing this art form and making this beautiful thing happen in a canvas and telling these stories, that speaks volumes to me, to where the toxicity just falls off.
That's great. I couldn't agree more, Zach. Thank you again, man.
Hey, thank you for having me. And get back to this lovely lady and the message that she's promoting for us and the people.
I think that's the same word I was about to say, is that like what you just said, not just applies to the wrestling ring. I think that should apply to the world. You know what I mean? Honestly, because that's how it is. It's in a segmented, segmented area. But really, if you remove those labels of the wrestler and the rings and all that, apply that same,
Across the board.
Yeah.
It's one of the things about like retail. I worked retail since I was 16. All right. So 16 to 36 is when I got out of the retail industry. And I could never talk to somebody in the retail world like I always got talked to by people.
Right.
People forget, because I'm in this box, because I'm associated with Walmart, Sam's Club, whatever it may be, like I'm the bad entity. No, dude, I'm just trying to pay my light bill just like everybody else. That's all I want to do. And for somebody to, I understand everybody has issues and everybody has problems, and I get that. But to bring your frustration through the door because you're trying to buy a TV and we don't have it in, that doesn't make sense to me.
People do that though. People take their, and that's something so important to like not bring. Don't take out, like I said earlier, you're allowed to feel however you want to feel. Your feelings are always valid, even if it is at the TV that you can't buy for whatever reason at Sam's Club. That doesn't give you the right to berate the Sam's Club employee.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean your feelings are invalid. It just means that's not the best way to handle it. And
maybe the restaurant's down a cook and they don't have the ability to get out there under the 30 minutes. Like that,
Yep.
We are all real people and we all have real issues. There's real issues out there. Why do we continue with the division? That is something that perplexes me still to this day. And I really hope to see that day the division goes away. And
I think meeting kindness sometimes is as hard as it is sometimes to have that situation come up and that person be rude or hateful to you for seemingly no reason. It's very difficult. But to almost reinforce that kindness instead of snowballing it, because and not letting it affect you and being like, I'm sorry, sometimes it comes off as facetious, like, oh, I'm sorry you're having a bad day, but sometimes it's amazing what kindness can do in that situation where it's like, maybe that person really had a bad day and they didn't mean to take it out on you, and just your genuine kindness can just turn everything around. And so on the flip side of that too, and that's how we break that division, is understanding it's not personal, meeting everybody where they're at, and understanding that we're all fighting battles that we don't know, and just to practice that kindness and understanding that you may not understand, but you can still be a decent human towards them, because sometimes the ones that are really mean and hateful are usually the ones that just like need more love.
There it is. There it is, the more love. And before I get out of here, Alex, one more thing before I leave. Remember this, everybody. The people around you, if they don't know exactly what role they play in your story, you have to give them the script. You have to make them understand. You have to speak up to show them what they mean to you and what they are supposed to be in your life. Because if they don't know the script, they don't know how to act around you. Plain and simple.
Yeah.
Much love, guys.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you again, Zach.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, guys.
Much love, guys.
Oh, and there's a couple of comments here I want to highlight real quick. Another voice from within the wrestling industry, Reinar the Hooligan. I'm just going to say this here because, well, he and I are one. We are very separate entities, and I can speak freely. Always reach out for help. He almost didn't make it. He had people randomly stopping by, scares off, finding a stiff. He drug himself through hell. Don't do that. I'd rather listen to what's troubling you than stand at another graveside.
Yep, and sometimes you think that nobody's going to hear you, or nobody's going to care, or nobody's going to say something, and you'll be amazed you'll be amazed once you speak up and reach out that there are people out there who care, people who will be there. That's what NAMI is. I mean, and we're always here. NAMI is always here. We have we are here for you. I mean, we don't have like services like as far as like mental health, like therapists and doctors, but what we do is we can help you find resources to get those things that you need. We can help you find connection groups in your area. We can, let you know about events that we have going on and how you can get involved, because I know volunteering is something that I never was one of those people who was like, I'm going to go volunteer my time, because that's, and like I said, when I started volunteering with NAMI, it was like the beginning of, this whole new life that I didn't know was going to happen, and in a good way. And we're here, please reach out to us. Because, you're not alone in this, and it's very real. What you feel is real, and you matter, and you should be heard. And that's something I guess want to keep stressing that, because suffering in silence has almost killed me too. So, and that's just the worst way to live.
And we have the comment from NAMI Southwestern Illinois at the NAMI website, NAMISWI.org, for helpful resources and a calendar of their support groups and classes.
Yep. And then I finally figured out how to put my email in there too. There we go. It took me a while, but I did it. Oh, but yeah, we have a walk coming up, which is something I gotta make sure. I'm gonna get in trouble if I don't mention it, because it's one of our biggest fundraisers for the year. It's coming up September 20th, and it's gonna be at Moody Park in Fairview Heights, Illinois. You can get all the details on NAMISWI.org. It's going to be really great. We got you can tie dye your t-shirts there. You'll have some lunches. We have some cool t-shirts. There's just going to be some vendors, a lot of resource tables. We're going to have a scavenger hunt for kids. I mean, we're really just trying to make it a day of community, and the theme is walking beyond labels, and bringing people together is what we want to do. And we are nonprofits, so this is how we continue to fund these outreach programs that we do, and how we are able to keep doing what we do, and helping. The more support we have, the bigger we grow, the more people we help, the more lives we save.
And we have a comment from Chris Bean: random acts of kindness can change and save lives.
Absolutely. 300% I agree.
And we have another message from Dardar that I think you can connect with, and says, to help me with my mental stuff, I draw and make stuff for other people that are hurting and need to smile. The stuff I do makes me happy, and if other people don't like that, forget them and ignore them.
Oh, well, I'm about that. I'm an artist as well, and I actually didn't have my first art show until after my daughter passed away, and it was because I was afraid that beforehand I'd done art my entire life, that it was mine, and I didn't want anybody to take it away. So I never really showed a lot of people. And when I lost my daughter, I finally realized, after burying my daughter next to my son, I had nothing else to fear, and I really just started creating nothing but art. I mean, that's how I grieved, that's how I coped, and it was deemed art from the heart. And I did the same thing, and I make art, and people, I've sold some paintings for a lot of money, but I've also said, if something calls to somebody, they can just have it, because it's the same thing. It makes you feel just as good. And was that infamous? If you have any art you would like to submit for our newsletter, I'd love to see it and have it and put it in there. So.
And we have Ariel with a question for you. What's one thing you would like people to know if they reach out to NAMI?
Oh, man. We're here. What can I do? How can I help? You're not alone. I mean, it sounds basic, but there's just so much to NAMI that what can we do for you? How can we help you feel better about what's going on?
And we have dropped in the comments there a link about the mental health awareness.
Perfect. Yeah, we're excited about that. It should be good, so as long as it don't rain.
And then we also have another voice from in the industry tonight.
Right.
A video from Phoenix Quinn to play here real quick.
What's up, y'all? Phoenix here. Tonight's topic is mental health. I think that's a very, very important topic and one that's not talked about enough. I have plenty of friends and family and those that I hold dear to my heart that actually suffer from a mental illness. I myself cannot speak from experience because I do not. However, the only message I can give you is you are seen, you are heard. How your brain processes things is valid, and that I'm here. I suffer from the daily life stress and all of that, but I don't have something I'm going to live with for the rest of my life. So again, you're seen, you're heard, and much love.
I love that.
Phoenix Quinn, always a great grounded voice to almost everything.
I can put a face now to the names now that we talked about.
But, one thing that when we talked before, that I brought up to you is that it's interesting the avenues for healing that people can find.
Mm-hmm.
Because for you, it was your artwork, and for me, my biggest path for healing is doing the wrestling photography.
Yeah.
And it is something that worked for me because deep down at my core, I do like to help people. Helping people makes me feel good. It makes me feel valid. It makes me feel like I have done something to better the world a little bit in some way, shape, or form. And well, I can't sit here and recommend that taking pictures of half-naked men fighting over a belt is going to help everybody.
I put that in the article.
There's going to, I will say that I do think there's an avenue for help for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, and there's so many ways, and you can, something that it's like, one of the quotes I used for the article was, you can find with this, something he says that you can find help in the weirdest places, and that's so true. You never know what, standing in an elevator and you may say something to somebody and all of a sudden you have a resource and you realize that's a connection you needed, or you just don't know. And I think that goes back to that conversation point. You can find help in the weirdest places. It's just, you got to talk about it. You got to not be afraid to speak up, because the only way we can break the stigma around mental health, and the only way we can have more people feel less alone, is if we continue to talk about it, not just talk about it once in a while, and make it to a point where it's not a taboo subject. It's normal. We're talking. It's part of our conversation. And that also eventually that just kind of snowballs into the doctors that start listening to us more. The police officers, the people, the professionals. It's just breaking that stigma, but we all have to start doing it.
We have Chris being saying forgiving others is important, but forgiving yourself is the hardest.
Being kind to yourself is one of the hardest things that sometimes you got to learn. But sometimes you got to, it's okay to not be okay, and you're allowed to feel how you feel, and that doesn't make you a bad person. Sometimes we feel bad about how we feel, which sounds kind of like what? But yeah, you're human. You are not going to love everything. You're going to have bad days, and you're going to make mistakes, and you're going to do things that you regret. And that's kind of, I think, the spiritual journey of life. I learned that, that we make mistakes, so we grow, we learn. And that comes with, like you said, forgiving yourself. Because, you just got to give yourself some credit. You're doing better than you probably think you are.
Yeah, and another thing too is that it can be hard to express yourself to people because you yourself don't want to feel like a burden.
That's a huge one, and I think for a lot of people that's the same thing. I don't want to be a burden, but what's really going to be a burden is if you're not here anymore. I think most people would rather you be here than them taking a few minutes of their time. People are a lot more understanding than we give them credit for, I think. So, and it takes a lot. Don't get me wrong. I'm one of those people that's like, I have a hard time. I still have a hard time reaching out, but I've done a lot better about saying, this is, if I'm having something going on, like emotionally, or I'm having experienced some of my symptoms. It's like, just sitting there and texting, like, oh my God, this happened a couple of days ago. And I just texted somebody, like, this is what I was experiencing. I haven't experienced this in a long time. And just, getting that out. And then I'm saying, me too. This is what I experienced today. And it was such like a therapeutic moment, but it was like, this is why you do that. Because now it wasn't burying it inside of me. It had happened, it sucked. And then now I can move on with my day. But having, reaching out and saying what happened helped.
Yes. When I got into the wrestling business, and crazy to think that's been 5 years that I started in the wrestling business, I had walls up around me where I didn't want to bring my problems into anybody else's problems. And then just the more you get, because wrestling, there is a brotherhood where we all will look out for each other. We're all protecting each other in the ring and outside the ring. We're all, got each other's backs. And just to have that backing you up, and then you started talking to people and you realize that, hey, maybe I didn't realize you're going through the same thing. It doesn't seem like it because you put up a good front, but then you realize like you're not alone. And even just a simple conversation, even though if somebody doesn't understand what you're going through, just the concern and just talking to them makes it feel so much better.
Yeah, I've always said that sometimes you don't have to understand, and I don't want you to even try to. Maybe I don't want you to understand. But to know that like you said, you're there for me. It goes a long way. Just to know, that I'm not alone in this, or I'm not too much. I'm not too sensitive. I'm not too whatever. And then I just saw that comment on there, and I just want to make it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I because there is a catch-22 to that. I get that, and is that mental health. I do know that sometimes it is hard because of that situation right there. I spoke out. I got bullied, or it's like the guy that was just on, like when he spoke out, or they said it was nothing wrong with him. He was just a kid. You're growing. It makes it really hard, and that's really, once again, back to that speaking up and talking about it, because if you're a kid going through this, you're being bullied by people who are probably being bullied at home, and it's that chain reaction, and having more education on that could either prepare the children better, and that's actually why we do like the Ending the Silence programs, for that specific reason right there, because we want the students to understand that you don't know what's going to happen when you bully a kid. You don't know how it's going to feel. You don't know if that's going to be the last time you see that kid because of what you said. People are fighting these mental health battles, and they're getting younger and younger, especially with social media. And so I thank you for bringing that up, because it's a really prominent issue right now in the world with, kids and bullies. And so I'm glad that you're here. And thank you for sharing that, because that's not easy to, talk about.
I grew up, I was bullied in school. We were all picked on at some point in school, but then you realize that the bully is just lashing out because you realize that his life at home is not nowhere near what your life at home is. And he's just acting out. And then I've had a couple times where me and my bully become friends because we're going through the same thing at home. We don't have the greatest home life at home. And I realized why he's lashing out, just for, attention. He wants to make it look like he's big, strong. But other than that, he's not. He's the same way you are. He's just trying to be the bigger person.
And he's probably struggling with the mental health issue, is, probably some sort of mental health onset of a disorder as well. Yeah. So you've got that element playing into it, genetically, and it doesn't make it right. But like you said, becoming friends, go back to that, practicing kindness goes a long way. And sometimes not taking it personally, which is so hard as a kid, or it's actually to anybody, but saying it's probably not me, and saying almost like, hey, are you doing okay? What, kind of like learn, giving our kids, or not, I don't even say kids, but everybody, building everybody's confidence up helps them be able to react better to things too. You don't take it as personally. You can react to the bully. You can react to that negative person with kindness and empathy, which is something hard to do. But once you could do that, that's how we start to change. break cycles. We build bridges. We create hope.
Got Chris Bean saying in the comments, most bullies started as a victim.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And a lot of times, they don't even realize it. They're just doing what they've seen done, what they felt, or what they've seen done, what they've had done to them. It's conditioned in them, and it's sad and it's true. But that's and understanding that, and it's like teaching these next generations of kids that's how that is. That's what NAMI does. That's one of our big initiatives. Is to kind of start there. If we can start when they're middle school, then maybe we can the next generations will be able to. We won't have the same issues. New ones, but then will be those. So.
But I really love everything that NAMI does to try to raise awareness and help people out and provide support and resources and groups. And the calendar of events is up on the NAMI website. There's a lot of different support groups available.
Absolutely, yeah. And we're always looking for volunteers, and the more volunteers we get, the more support groups we can have. We'll train you to be a connections facilitator. Because we want to be there. We want as many things that we can offer to everybody as possible. And because it's like I said, it's community. And if you're not a support group person and you don't really care for support groups, like I said, there's other opportunities. I know I do the newsletter, and you can volunteer there, and we can maybe do some writing, or you find a place where you can fit to help you kind of feel a part of the family and not feel alone, and feel like a place where we can feel safe. Let me put it that way.
And I mean, just simply helping other people can be a path to helping yourself too.
Oh gosh, yeah. I had an old boss that used to always tell me it was like giving a hug. When you give a hug, you kind of receive a hug at the same time. And that's kind of what the work we do is. It's like you helping people, but in the process of it, you feel the same kind of, reward from it, and that healing. And like, it makes you feel, for me, I know it's something that when I share my story, or when I'm on, when I'm doing the work that I do, it reminds me why I'm still here. It reminds me, okay, are my bad days, when I'm, kind of caught up in my head. I remember, it's these kind of things that remind me why I'm here, and like my purpose, and that I'm still here for a reason. And it's, it's a good feeling. And it's, like I said, it's something that I recommend everybody just go around helping people. You don't have to take pictures of half naked men.
That helps me, maybe not for everybody.
I literally, I was like, I gotta put this in here. I was like, I don't know. And I think that's how I'm actually gonna end it. Because I was like, I have to include that because I thought it was so funny. And but it just shows to the candidness. And like with your article, I really wanted to point out about how, you didn't display these symptoms of like psychosis or these major like depressive disorder symptoms. Yours was very subtle, very kind of unknowing almost, and I think that's a good message to let people know. You don't have to be having this meltdown to be suffering inside. People may not see it, and that mental illness affects everybody in different ways. And I think that sometimes, like I said, we sometimes look at mental illness and we have this image of what it's supposed to look like on somebody. And then, so when they say, well, I'm suffering with this, there's that disbelief, that attention needing, or when somebody ends up, unfortunately, committing suicide, like I didn't see it coming, but did you take a step back and really look at the big picture of it? People suffer in silence all the time, and it's not obvious. And I think that's something I really pulled from your story, and how you were able to find, you were lucky, and you found, not lucky, but you found something with the NGW wrestling and the photography that was inspiring, because you found your place, you found your like home base after a couple of years of going through that fog, and Depression
Well,
just in many ways.
right, and the other hard part too is that, you know, during that time I felt like I couldn't express myself because I had to be strong for my wife.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's something I know we didn't touch a whole lot on it, but like you had mentioned in our interview that, you know, there wasn't a lot of people worth giving your wife resources but not giving you resources, and that you just knew your role as the man was to be the strong one and to take care of her, which is so noble and what you should do, which is amazing. And but there is a real divide there with men and mental health, I think. Is that there is still, men are supposed to be strong and stoic to a degree, and if you are not that way, you're weak or you're not a man. And I think that using this platform and to talk about mental health, and that specifically is really important, because I think, you know, a lot of guys watch that, not and girls too, but it's a man's world a little bit, and I think sharing that message is like, actually it makes you more of a man, I think, to stand up and say, you know, I'm not doing okay. I need help. I'm reaching out, but breaking that stigma around that's just, you know, we're getting there.
Yeah, and you know, one thing I brought, it goes hand in hand with, you know, finding support in strange places where you didn't really think you would. One of the things that helped me out during that time was actually a Reddit group.
Mm-hmm. Which I wouldn't have thought about that. I never even thought about that, you know. And that's, you wouldn't know. I mean, I tell you what, I've had people who bought paintings from me the same way. Random conversation, like in an elevator or just walking and just talking, like, oh, this is something, just and then I tell them about my art, and it's like all of a sudden there's that door opening. Or it's kind of like when me and you talked, you know, we were like, well, we're both angel parents. I always say you're part of the club nobody wants to be a part of, you know. But it's like, oh, you find, you know, but that started with the conversation about mental illness. And now me and you I think, or when we started just talking, I mean, and it was like this collaboration about what we could be doing, what we could, you know. And it was like, once again, it started from us being able to openly speak about real stuff that you've gone through, to help other people, you know they're not alone. And I just think that's like an awesome message that you guys are doing.
And that goes right back to what you were saying earlier about when you open up, you find other people to share things with, other people that you had a connection with that you can share these experiences with.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, like I told you before, you know, it's a tragic experience losing a child. It's not something that you ever get over. But like you said, it's a club that you don't want to be a part of.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're sitting and you're talking with somebody else who's gone through the same things you have, you can find weird things to laugh about together and support each other in that way.
Yeah. And like, yeah, I like some of the things that you had said about you and your wife joking about, what was it? Your son and an infant and a senior citizen in the same room or something. I don't know. It was really funny though. But yeah, using humor is so good. But you can only kind of, it's very rare to find somebody that gets it, where I know for me, it's still like when people hear about it, it's kind of like, it's still very taboo, because, you know, child loss is something that everybody fears. If you have children, you fear it. If you have nieces or nephews, you fear it. That's why there are so many scary movies with that baseline in it, which I never noticed until after. It was like one day I was like, wait a second, all these movies, every single one is like, and I was like, and you want to know why that is? That is everybody's deep, darkest, truest fear. And we experienced it. And so it's people don't want to hear about it, but it's kind of the same thing with mental health. Is I continue to talk about it because, you know, it's a part of my story, but we're still parents. We're still, you know, I'm still a mother. You're still a father. It just, you know, they're probably in a way cooler place. It's going back to perception.
Got Doris saying, I always felt like I had to hide my emotions from everyone. Wound up just keeping everything to myself, but it made it worse. And thoughts of comedian got so worse, just had to talk to someone.
It's primal. Yeah, Ariel, you're right. It's very primal. Yeah, and And it's hard sometimes, and that's why learning when going back to the point of that confidence and self-love is so hard to love ourselves, but once we learn to love ourselves, which is like so hard to do. I'm not gonna say that's an easy path, but it also starts helping us help others, but also not rely on their opinions. Because I know sometimes we are very reliant on approval, and it's not intentional. It's not like we go into it thinking, okay, I need their approval, but as soon as somebody says that doesn't look good on you, or this is that, we all of a sudden that could we're like, oh my God, our mental health gets impacted. And the next thing we know, we're in our head. People don't understand one little comment can help you spiral out for days. But yeah, so and I'm glad that I'm like reading as I go here, but yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yes, Ariel. Oh my God. I actually recently experienced that myself. I went through a lot. It was 2017. And the first few years, there was a lot going on. I was like in some litigation processes. So I think I was fighting. I had this like motivation, and it wasn't, and I had to deal with, everybody else's stuff. And it was like, I think grief hit me. I mean, I was grieving the whole time, but I think it was last year, maybe. I don't know if it was her anniversary date, and it just wiped me out. Like it was like it had just happened yesterday. And it was so crazy how it was so intense. It was that intense grief. And I was like, I haven't felt this since it happened. Or it hits me sometimes, when my oldest niece graduated from, high school. It was like, and it wasn't like I was bawling, but I started having tears coming down my eyes thinking, oh, that's not going to be my kid, ever. Or this is how my son would have been the year younger than her. And so this is supposed to be, and it's just kind of like, and that's where the PTSD comes in. It's like I have these, they're called environmental triggers, things that you can't prepare for. You can't prepare yourself for some of the things. You can cope, you can learn your coping skills, you can learn your warning signs, and that's all wonderful. But when it comes to certain traumas, there could be a smell that just brings you back to that time and place where you just, all of a sudden you're in that moment and you feel just whatever you're feeling, whether it's anger, sadness. It's very, I went through this part about anger, and I know that you had mentioned something about failure, feeling that failure. We get these heavy emotions, and when you go through those kind of extreme traumas, I think that the most important thing is to understand that you may not ever truly you should ever get over these things, but we do learn how to cope with them and understand and give ourselves space to feel it. And that's something I had to learn. Trauma sometimes isn't meant to get over. It changes who we are. And people always say, well, you can heal, and healing is part of it, but learning that this happened, it did happen, and this is my life. I want a good life, so I have to figure out how to, cope with it, and still, so for me, it's doing these kind of things, doing art, connecting, I love being able to talk about my daughter, and, connecting with you and Ariel is really nice, because it's like, once again, that communication of like, okay, I'm not the only one over here who has that, it hits you out of nowhere.
Yeah.
So thanks, Ariel.
But again, I cannot thank you enough for joining us here tonight. This has been very special to me, because Scott, I think we originally started talking about doing this 2-3 months back.
Yeah, it was a couple months ago we started doing this idea.
Oh, it's awesome. Well, I know that we had briefly discussed about doing a potential, a mental health awareness month, trying to do something together. And I would really like for NAMI to continue to have some sort of relationship with NGW, whether it's through the newsletter or doing something,
Yes.
anything, and just keep them linked, whether it's like we want to spotlight like a wrestler who's gone through something, or if there's art, just somehow we could just keep the relationship going. I think that
Most definitely.
Yes, I think wrestling and you guys partnering together would be great, because when we pitched this idea, we realized that wrestling has their own platform, it has their own basis. But if we reach somebody through that who's a fan of wrestling, who hears from these wrestlers going through some of the stuff that they go through on a normal basis, hopefully maybe we can open up some doors. But yes, I think this should be an all year round thing, to where we partner, and just at least that way we have somebody there that, like, if you're at a wrestling show and you want to reach out, at least we have somebody there that can hand out resources to
absolutely
maybe get the door opening, to get the ball rolling on whatever they need help with. And at least if they can come to a show and maybe leave with some information of like, hey, maybe I can reach this person, and then the next week they reach out and start the healing process. I think it's a great partnership.
Absolutely. I mean, because like you said, this is a community that we've never even thought to try to tap into. You know what I mean? Like, it's great, because it's just, this is going to hopefully open up more doors for people to be like, oh, okay, like, I didn't know who you guys were. I didn't know it was okay. But not only that, it's also showing from your guys' standpoint, a wrestler's point of view, that getting help is like, it's totally okay. It's nothing, there's nothing wrong with it. It's normal. And kind of, I think that's just,
They see, like, with wrestling, they see us as, the wrestlers as these big stars. They don't realize that we're normal people. We do a normal life. We have families. We go through all the mental struggles that a lot of people go through. And it's just, if we can use that as a platform to help somebody out, I think that is just tremendous. I'm hoping more organizations reach out, and hopefully we can get, not just an NGW, but everywhere in wrestling.
That would just be great. I mean, that would just be, I mean, like I said, again, this is like finding connections in the weirdest places. And really, but because when you think about mental health, you don't think, oh, wrestling. But it's like, really, it's like, it's just a perfect place, to where mental health is probably prominent, where it's like everywhere else. And again, thank you guys for having us on, and giving us an opportunity to connect with you guys and to build this relationship, because I really think that with this, collaboration, we're going to be able to help a lot of people, and at least expand NAMI SWI's reach.
Yeah, I can't thank you enough. And, most definitely, NAMI and NGW are definitely going to hopefully be working together in the future on a couple of things, I hope, because we talked about a couple of things.
What about a lot of things? Let's be real. And yeah, but I will I will be in touch. I got to send you that article anyway. It is going to come out. I got to condense it still. But like I said, please reach out to us. We are always looking for volunteers. Our walk's coming up the 20th. I'm always looking for submissions for the newsletter, for writing, art, poetry, a place to, platform to share your, creativity. I welcome it, and it's a quarterly newsletter. So my email is in the comments. You can also reach out to us through NAMISWI.org.
All right. Scott and I usually take the last comment of the show, but I really want you to have the last thing of the show before we roll our outro video, Kaleigh.
Shoot. Okay. What pressure's on? Well, I guess is that like the last thing I need to say is I just said the last thing. No, you guys aren't alone out there. That everybody struggles with mental health, and please reach out. Because I just keep repeating myself, but it's like, you're not alone in this. And I think that is the worst feeling to feel. There is no need to suffer in silence when we are here. We are here to listen. We are here to help. And yeah, you're not alone again.
All right. Thank you very much. And
Thank you.
I said, we'll definitely be working with NAMI in the future.
All right.
And I want to thank everybody for joining us live in the comments tonight. And I really do hope that this has made a positive impact on somebody tonight.
Yes, I'm hoping that maybe somebody that's not maybe strong enough to make a comment tonight will hopefully reach out and get the ball rolling, even if they don't feel comfortable talking about it live on the air.
And that's why I put my personal email is in there, so you can, so you know directly who it is going to. You are welcome to reach out to me that way. Okay.
Yes.
And we have Infamous Star. This has made a really positive impact on me and taught me to be nice to myself and to talk to people.
Yeah, you matter. You matter. You matter. No matter how you feel, you matter. Oh, something I do want to say is sometimes our negative thoughts, I used to always think, when we think everything we think is real, right? Kind of, I think that I'm negative, and all these negative thoughts. Something that really, I don't know if a light bulb went off or something I read, but I started really, I go, all my thoughts aren't real. They're not facts, that's not the truth, so some of our, negative thoughts, we got to remember that's what they are. They're thoughts. So you're not alone on that again, so.
Yeah. We might be having one other person who might want to say something before we sign off here for the night.
That's funny.
I hope.
Just kidding, no.
Oh, yeah, we certainly do. All right. So we do have another voice from within the industry for tonight. And so everybody, if you'd please welcome Dexter Roswell. Oh, he's muted.
That sounds like that's what I was doing.
Dexter, if you can hear us.
Little technical difficulties. Well, maybe he got his internet the same place that I got my internet, so see if he'll join us here in a second. But yeah, one of the things that you always bring up, the main thing that I keep hearing over and over again is you are not alone. And that is the biggest thing, is to realize that you are not alone and that there is somebody out there that you can talk to.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and don't give up, don't give up just because one person is uneducated and still thinking in the box mentality. Don't give up just because one person may have not been the right person. Doesn't mean that you should stop. You should give up trying to reach out. I think that's something I really would like to mention, because I do know sometimes you reach out and it's very discouraging. You reach out and you're thinking this is happening, and just kind of like when I went to get help and I was crying and upset because I'm here, I'm getting help, but why am I here if I can't even see a doctor? But then the other person came in and helped. It's just, you just gotta don't give up, because there is help. Help is out there.
Yes. And like you said, the first person you talk to may not be equipped to deal with your situation. So don't take it as like they don't care. They just may not be able to handle it. Mm-hmm. But, if you reach out to another person, that may help out better, because not everybody can handle certain situations, and maybe they don't know what to say. But even if,
exactly.
It's not you, it's just.
Well, and sometimes you got to know your rights. You got to remember, when you are going into the mental health, like the field, you have rights as a patient. If you don't like your therapist, you can get a new therapist. You can request a new therapist. If you don't like, you got to give your medication time to work. But if the medication is not making you feel right, giving it time, you can tell your dad, I don't, this isn't working. What else can we do? Learning to advocate for yourself in those situations, because you want to get help, and sometimes I know fighting for yourself is hard sometimes, but at the end of the day, it's worth it because I know I had to fight to get a new doctor a long time ago because I was like, this doctor doesn't listen, this doesn't do this, and this is my mental health. I need the doctor that's going to listen. And it took a while, but I eventually got to that doctor, a different doctor, and knowing that you have rights, you are the one in charge. This is your life, not theirs. And you basically, your insurance is what pays their bills. So you're, essentially you're their boss.
Yeah.
So.
Yes.
And Dexter, thank you for joining us tonight.
Yes, thank you guys for having me on. I almost forgot about it. I was busy at practice doing stuff, and I was like, oh crap. So yeah, I'm driving right now. I have pulled over so I could get at least a decent connection. I was trying there for the longest time, and I didn't have any connection.
Well, I'm glad you're able to pop in here, sir.
Huh. So how's everybody been today? We just started, I guess, with that.
Well, I think that we've been having a really good, productive discussion on the importance of mental health.
Yeah. I mean, it's something that is important, not just in the wrestling business, but just in life in general. Like sticking with the wrestling side of it. For me, wrestling helps my mental state. Like I'm able to step away from all the struggles and heartaches, that come with normal life, or whether it be a few hours or whatnot, and just kind of step away from it all, kind of breathe, like having that outlet, whether it's sports, reading, or whatever, like whatever your hobby is, there needs to be something to like kind of fall back on, where you can give yourself that mental break.
Yeah, we talked about that earlier a little bit, with the wrestling being like that good outlet just physically. Gives you that, place to, channel that energy into it. It's just healthy for everybody to find that, whatever works for them. But the physical element that with the endorphins and the way our dopamine works, I think that wrestling is such a good, general, not just an outlet, but a way to actually, maintain and keep a healthy mental health balance there. So.
And, sometimes it's not easy, going through life, whether you have people coming at you or stresses at your job or this, that, or the other. Like, you don't know what people are going through in their normal lives, So when you see somebody out there, like, giving their all in the wrestling or just out there enjoying themselves, they might be doing that for you, but they're doing it, a lot of it for themselves, so they can just kind of like have that breather.
Yeah. It's like the hug we talked about, it's like when we do things, it's like a hug. It's like we do things, we give hugs because, to help comfort people, but really, when you give a hug, you also like it too.
Yes, very much so.
So.
All right, but I want to thank you for coming on with us tonight, Dexter. It was really important to me that we got a lot of voices from within the industry tonight to help really show people this affects everybody.
Yeah,
Mental illness doesn't discriminate.
No,
it does not. It can affect the strongest people. Sometimes the ones that look like they have it all together are the ones that are suffering the most. Like I watched a lot of videos where it's like, check on your strong friends. They're always the ones that are trying to build everybody else up when they don't know how to ask for help themselves. I feel sometimes I fall into that. Like I try to at least be there for everybody to give as much as myself, but I do struggle at times to reach out for help and asking people. Like when I get in my head a lot. Between wrestling and other promotions and running our own promotion and then having a regular job outside of that, it can become a lot, and just not knowing kind of who you can trust. That's a big thing. Like surrounding yourself with a group of people that absolutely trust you, confide in, to be your genuine self.
yeah, most definitely.
He put, and the one thing he said was like, was about, we talked about it a lot already, was like what we are. Sometimes we look like we're fine on the outside, but like breaking and just shattering inside without anybody knowing. But I think on the opposite end of that too, we have the mental health element of like when we see people who are homeless, who are talking to themselves, and we write them off as crazy, quote unquote, crazy, or they're drug addicts, or they made all these bad life choices, and maybe that's true, but maybe it's also that breakdown of systematically they tried to get help, couldn't get help, they went, they kept falling through the cracks, and then they've got, they're hearing things, and they're hearing things that we can't hear, they're seeing things that we don't see, that are telling them are these negative things. But we have negative thoughts, but they have negative voices, like somebody next to us all the time, saying these things to us, and they spiral out. And that's, kind of why they end up where they're at. And it makes me wonder if we would have had more things like this going on when, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, if that would, maybe that would have helped the homeless generation, or it would have helped crimes and certain level of criminals who do these certain things, because they also kind of fell through the cracks, kind of the same way people who are smiling and suffering, at the end of the day, we all kind of were suffering in silence because of the stigma. Just different routes. So.
All right,
I know I need to jump on. I'm not going to stay on here too long. I need to get back on the road. But like I'm sure it's been mentioned before, just be yourself, be able to try to be open with people, and take mental health seriously. It's nothing to joke about, and it needs more attention.
Absolutely. Thank you again, Dexter.
Thank
you drive home safe.
I will.
All right.
Guys.
All right.
Yeah, I love his name.
Dexter.
Yeah. I love Dexter. Anyway.
But again, I cannot thank you enough for coming on. I can't thank NAMI enough for agreeing to help us out and to partner with us for this, and some other future things that I'm sure we can announce a little bit in the future here.
Absolutely. I'm excited, and thank you guys again for having us, for starting the conversation, for using the platform, for using your platform that you've developed. You guys had an audience that's apparently grown within a very short amount of time. You guys got a really good audience, and thank you for using it for good and to have these kind of important conversations, because that's how we, break the cycle and break the stigma, and just keep doing what you're doing, guys.
Yes, exactly. This is it's not really much of a it's not too much of a taboo subject, but a lot of places don't want to bring this up. But we felt that, this need to be bringed up in the wrestling industry, not only for the wrestlers, but also the fans that come to the show. And there's a wide group of people you can touch through the wrestling industry. And we thought that this would be perfect, to shine a light on something that a lot of people don't talk about very much.
No, and it's funny you say that, because it's you're exactly right. It is 2025, and yes, it is exponentially more talked about than 20 years ago when I was 15. But it's still very it is kind of taboo. We do talk about it more, and then there is people, but the people still don't truly understand it. We may talk about it, but people don't really understand it, if that makes sense. They still don't think that there's much resources out there, that they don't really need a support group, or they're not that bad. They minimize their symptoms, and they don't understand what they're going
I don't need medication. I don't need therapy. I'm good. I'm not as bad as this person. I'm
Exactly.
okay. That's what it is. But then you realize that you're not okay.
Especially when you hear other people talking about whenever, that's, I'm not, oh, they realize, oh, me too. Oh, that's what I'm doing though. They start realizing, that's what, like I said, these important, these conversations are so important, because you never know what one thing we're going to say on this as we speak is going to affect somebody else, and them say, me too. I do need help. Or, oh, I thought I was the only one. or I didn't realize that was a resource, or, or just there's so many elements to it. And like the platform you guys have given, I guess the audience is somebody we may have not been ever actually been able to reach.
Yes.
Right? Because we didn't know, you know what I mean? Like you said earlier, it's like you don't associate the two together, which.
And then, these fans that come to these wrestling shows see these wrestlers as like superstars. They don't have anything wrong with them. They're perfect in every way. And then they realize, hey, they're going through the same thing I'm going through. So then with the wrestler coming on and saying, hey, I went through this too, I found help, it's tremendous that they know that, somebody that they idolize is going through a lot of the same things they're going through. And maybe they might look and say, hey, how did you deal with this? How can I look into something that helped me?
Yeah. And that's I think that is so powerful too. I just to see somebody going through it, who went through it and coming out the other side as well. I think that, and like getting in the ring, I said, these kids and are these even adults are looking at these wrestlers as their, immortal superheroes kind of, and normalizes mental health and the conversation. And that's what needs to happen. And hopefully from this, we are getting, more people, hopefully from this conversation, we're able to, I get some phone calls, I get some emails. We start, we've at least, have connected with people who wouldn't have maybe found us before, which is amazing.
Yes.
Even if we reach and help just one person.
Absolutely. And I look forward to working with you guys in the future. And like I said, maybe we can figure out putting something about the wrestlers and their mental health, whatever we can do in the newsletter. But we're just going to keep trying to, work from this and keep growing as a collaboratory relationship. I don't know if that's actually a word or not, but it sounded good.
Yeah, we have a message from NAMI Southwestern Illinois. We appreciate you making this conversation available to your audience. This sort of platform and talk helps break down stigma. We appreciate you having us, and we, from the bottom of my heart, appreciate everything that NAMI does. We appreciate you teaming up with us. It really means a lot to us.
Yeah. So, and I look forward to, doing it some more. Hopefully, maybe we'll become hopefully when they think NGW, maybe they'll think NAMI too.
I hope so. That'd be great. The future partnership that we can have, I think can be amazing.
Absolutely.
All right. But again, thank you for coming on. Thank you, NAMI, for helping us out with this. And everybody, we will see you next week, and take care of yourselves. You all matter.
Absolutely.